And one of the problems with operating in that crisis environment is there's often an imperative that you acknowledge in the book to do something.
Yes.
You mentioned the creation of DHS,
Yes.
without really evaluating whether that something is actually going to help.
Precisely.
Or after you've done it, does help.
Yes.
How much does the imperative to do something to solve a short-term problem impact our ability to reach our long-term goals?
A lot. There's just, that too is part of human nature. And we Americans, I talk in the book also about kind of the nature of the American people. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but there's a bit of pop psychology in what I write. But it's generally a good trait, I think, on our part, and that is we want to, as you said, do something. We want to get something done. There's a crisis, we want to respond to it, and that's a good thing. But as you said, because of the crisis nature of the atmosphere at that point, there's such an urgency to act that one doesn't feel as though she, the institution has sufficient time to really think it through and to plan it out. I'm sure you've read these reports about exactly how the Department of Homeland Security was cobbled together in 2003, but literally a handful of guys, I think it was all guys, I know a few of them, Andy Card was one of them, then the White House Chief of Staff, got together over several sessions in a small conference room to say, this component of this agency is in, this component of this agency is out. It was just like that. And that's no way to run a railroad.
Right.
Nothing as complicated and as important as the security of the United States.
And even some very important issues like the decision to go to war. You quote in your book former Congressman and CIA Director Porter Goss, where he said, the Iraq War, while not a cause of extremism, has become a cause for extremists. Especially in such critical decision making. How do Americans assess whether these choices that are being made are actually helping improve security, especially over time?
Well, again, that's precisely why a vigorous and essentially unfettered press is so critical. That's why effective, nonpartisan, apolitical congressional oversight is so important. That's why GEO oversight is important. That's why the Inspector General oversight is important. It all goes back to that, it seems to me.
And you had mentioned that, for example, the VA scheme, that the Inspector General had done a number of reports. In your experience, is Congress very good at looking back at those reports for some of the recommendations rather than trying to come up to something immediate for the...
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, one of the pet peeves of Inspectors General, and I know this is true for GEO as well, is that, as you imply, there are generally scores, if not hundreds, and perhaps even thousands, depending on the agency we're talking about, of unimplemented Inspector General recommendations over time. That was one of my huge problems when I arrived at the State Department, trying to get that number down to a manageable number of those that had not yet been implemented. And so generally, no, the Congress does not look back at that. Generally speaking, it's a crisis-animated, press-driven process.